Hello. Hello. Good morning, Mr. Timothy. Can you hear
Good
me?
morning. Yes, I can hear you.
Good, good, very good. Welcome.
Hey, well, thank you so much.
Okay, Mr.
Thank
Timothy, without spending time, we will start our session here. Are you ready?
Yes,
Very
I'm
good.
ready, sir.
Very good. So, welcome to all viewers to our another episode of Privacy Pulse Talks. I am Anis Zaidi, CEO at Privacy Pulse Consulting Incorporation. Today, we are taking a broader look at Africa, a continent rapidly building its privacy identity. We would see how data laws are reshaping cross-border trade between Saudi Arabia and Africa. As Saudi Arabia strengthens its own data protection framework under PDPL, Africa's privacy journey offers valuable lessons and opportunities for cross-border data collaboration.
Yes.
Joining us today is Mr. Timothy Sampson. Welcome, Mr. Timothy, again.
Thank you,
Mr.
Anis.
Timothy is from Kenya and he's a seasoned data protection officer who has worked extensively on Kenya's Data Protection Act and regional compliance strategies. Mr. Timothy is also a distinguished member on Privacy Pulse panel of privacy experts. Welcome, Mr. Timothy, again. We are
Thank
so
you,
happy
Anis.
to see you and to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
Mr. Timothy, before we proceed with our talks, allow me a bit to share on bilateral trade between Saudi Arabia and Africa. African
Yes.
countries, mainly four countries, which is South Africa, Morocco, Kenya, and Egypt. Recently, our
Yes.
team at Privacy Pulse prepared a broad report on bilateral trade between these countries.
Mhm.
The report
Mhm.
revealed, I will read it. The report
Yes.
revealed that Saudi non-oil exports to Africa has been robust, totaling over $34 billion in the 5 years leading up to 2023.
Yes.
The report further noted that Saudi Arabia has significantly ramped up its engagement with Africa, viewing the continent as a crucial partner for economic diversification and geopolitical influence. This
Mhm.
strategic shift was formalized at a Saudi African summit in November 2023, where the kingdom announced a substantial investment package, including $25 billion to invest in various sectors and $10 billion in financing and ensuring exports. The trade
Yes.
relation is increasingly driven by Saudi non-oil exports, primarily in the chemicals, polymers, and construction material sectors.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Timothy, let's start with the big picture. How would you describe the
Yes.
privacy landscape across Africa right now, in view of all this bilateral trade, volume of trade which I have shared with you and with other viewers?
Yeah. In my opinion, thank you so much for that good question.
Please welcome.
In my opinion, I think Africa is moving towards compliance, and the first step of compliance is just having the laws. And I'm proud to say that just the other week, Gambia, there's a country called the Gambia in Africa that has passed legislation on data privacy and protection. Having said that, what is the trend currently or general trend? Because three-quarters of the countries in the continent are embracing data privacy and protection laws. Why? Because of the trust they want
I
to
see.
earn with the people they are trading with.
I
And
see.
Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is not an exception. And we prioritize data protection and privacy to earn the trust of our trade partners, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia included. And that is why I have to say that countries like South Africa have the POPIA, Morocco have a law, Egypt have a law,
Yeah.
Kenya have a Data Protection Act.
Yes.
Why? Because even the countries you're trading with, and even you as a third country, want to see that you have laws that embrace data privacy and protection to earn your trust in terms of trade. So like PDPL in the KSA, the people you're trading with need to know that you have a lawful basis of processing that data. Processing the people you're trading with, they need to be assured of data localization mechanisms if you have, or where the server is stored and where this data is stored, because privacy is paramount and the cracks of the trade axis that we are trading with between KSA and Africa.
Right.
Oversight is equally very mandatory. And the authorities are also being formed in these countries, respective countries, the authorities that will oversee the implementation of the laws. So ideally, yes, Africa is moving towards compliance, and the first step towards compliance is having legislation. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Timothy, when you compare these African laws with Saudi Arabia,
Yes.
PDPL, what similarities and differences stand out? Although we discussed it last time also, but just briefly, you can again share here.
Yeah, ideally, what we said in a nutshell is that Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's laws are a little bit bent towards national security and public interest. If you look at the way the law is framed, the PDPL, in a nutshell, African laws are generally framed in a manner that allows a data subject centric permission in terms of data transfer. I can give my consent for data transfer, and the government would not really interfere so much or really be interested in whatever I'm doing. So ideally, most of our African laws have allowed data subject centric permission in terms of data transfer, as compared to PDPL that allows national security and public interest in terms of governing data transfer. So that is what I can cite as the major difference between the two. However, I'll put a disclaimer as I continue that our list is never exhaustive. It's merely a guiding list towards what people need to do to comply. And ideally, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has laws that govern issues to do with AI, something which is a stark absence in the laws that we have in our African laws, because we are clearly starting to embrace AI. And that is a step that Saudi Arabia has beaten most African laws in terms of implementation. Because when we talk of automation, the automation we cite in our laws in Kenya, or even in Morocco, or even in Popia in South Africa, merely just talk about human oversight in automated processing of data subject data. And ideally, that is just a blank check in terms of supervision of AI. So I made a list of some differences, which I think I can cite to the audience that is listening, in terms of the differences between the PDPL and most of our African laws. And the first one, ideally, is supervisory authority. You find that the SDAIA governs the compliance in terms of the PDPL of the KSA. But in Egypt, they have a data protection center. In Kenya, we have a data protection commission and an authority that looks into matters compliance. In South Africa, they also have an information regulator that deals with that. In Morocco, they have a commission that deals with matters compliance with data protection. Those are some of the differences I found in terms of supervisory authority. But coming back to a point I said before, in Saudi Arabia, it's more of government centric. In the African countries, it's more of authority independence in terms of compliance and data protection. That is a difference I noted. The other difference I noted is in the issue of cross-border data transfer, and that SDAIA in PDPL KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is at the center of cross-border data transfer, and they have to be involved fully and 100% before any cross-border data transfer of data subject happens, especially en masse, for the issues of public interests and national security.
Right.
That is there. A stark contrast to Egypt, South Africa, and Morocco, and even Kenya, where I told you, as long as you have a lawful basis, sometimes you can get away with it. For instance, if it's health data, you can talk about vital interests, you can talk about consent, but we know very well that most people rely on consent, and I'll still repeat here and I'll keep repeating that half of the time, consent is always a lawful basis that needs another lawful basis to back it up. Because a data subject can always turn around and say, oh, I withdrew my consent. Consent is as fluid as it comes. The other difference I noted, moving on, is on the data subject rights. And I noted that in the PDPL in KSA, there is an access that data subject rights get for correction, destruction of their data, but limitations occur where there is national interest, national security, and public interest issues. African laws generally, they allow data subjects that leeway and latitude to amend, correct, withdraw, delete freely without much interference. And lastly, the issue of breach notification, which I also noted in terms of the differences between the laws. I noted that it is mandatory that the SDIA is informed for any breach notification. While here in Africa, it's not sometimes mandatory, especially where we feel that a breach occurred, but it was mitigated before it caused some tangible damage that we can talk about. For instance, a breach occurred and the data was anonymized that was accessed. We really don't have an obligation to go ahead and inform the authority, because ideally we know there is really no much danger that has occurred to anonymized data that was accessed by a third party who tried to hack into our system. But I stand corrected. I think in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it is mandatory that at least we report every breach that occurred, notwithstanding whether the data was anonymized or whether the mitigation bit you'll talk about later, but notify the SDIA about the breach that has occurred. In a nutshell, I think those are some of the stark differences which I noted, Anis, with regard to African laws and PDPL KSA.